In my previous life, I disguised myself as a man, donned armor, and fought on the battlefield in place of my brother. He basked in the glory, rising to the rank of general. In this life, we are both reborn. I had just been born. My brother, who was once as gentle and warm as jade in my memory, had bribed the midwife. His voice, cold as ice, cut through the air. Throw her into the mass grave to feed the wolves. Go back and tell the head of the family that the second young lady has died in the womb. Then, let out a low sigh. He fixed his venomous gaze on my tiny face in the swaddling cloth and spat out. You deserve to die. You killed Lysandra. The mass grave was cloaked in the ink-black night. A chilling wind that seemed to pierce the bones. The stench of rotting corpses mixed with the scent of blood and decay flooded my nostrils. It was nauseating. My brother's voice, brimming with hatred, echoed in my ears. Serafina, you deserve to die. You killed Lysandra. And you will pay for it with your life. A desolate emptiness filled my heart. I understood now my brother had been reborn too. I found myself in a hellish place, gazing at the pitch-black sky. My chest was consumed by a burning rage. In my past life, I fought through a sea of blood. Disguised as a man, I took to the battlefield, securing countless military achievements for my brother. I eliminated all of his enemies and rivals, ensuring his peace. Now, in this new life, he loathed me because of a false daughter. His hatred for me ran so deep, he wished for my death. I opened my eyes with indifference. My heart as cold as ice. This time, I was reborn as well. Lysandra was a false daughter that my brother had taken in later on. In the past life, she had been an unknown beggar. On a snowy day, she clung to my brother's leg, refusing to let go. Her red eyes easily captured his heart. She was brought into the Serafina family and carefully nurtured, eventually becoming the third young lady of the Serafina clan. She spent years weaving her plans. Finally, having fulfilled way, she got what she wanted: my brother's sympathy. She frequently plotted against me, but I never took her actions to heart. But she made the one unforgivable mistake. She coveted my brother. Her plan had been to drug him and crawl into his bed, but I discovered her scheme. I bound her up and threw her out, letting her fate take its course. She was picked up by a drunken coachman, and a night of madness ensued. Unable to bear the humiliation, she hanged herself. That day, my brother was in agonizing pain. He gripped my neck, questioning me harshly. Why did you hurt the one I loved? I struggled to lift my gaze, coldly answering. She and the Serafina family have long-standing enmity. She approached you only for revenge. My brother's eyes turned bloodshot, and with a powerful kick, he sent me crashing to the ground. He roared, "What do you know? What do you understand? Lysandra was willing to let go of her hatred for me. It was you who killed her." From then on, my brother and I became strangers. Years passed. He embarked on a military expedition to Xianyang as a general. My father ordered me to protect him in secret. On the battlefield, I took a deadly arrow for him. My chest pierced through. In the depths of my pain, I reached out, trying to grab hold of him. 1,000 words rushed to my lips, but only one escaped. "Brother." He took a step back, eyes filled with hate. As I collapsed, he grinned savagely. "Serafina, you should have died a long time ago. You should have paid for Lysandra's life." The darkness of the night deepened, and the distant howl of wolves sent a shiver through me. I dared not make a sound, warily scanning my surroundings. In this infant body, I was helpless, unable to run, unable to escape. If the wolves came, I would have no way out. Moments later, the heavy breath of beasts drew closer. A few wild wolves, stepping over the corpses of their kin, approached. Their eyes glowed with a ghostly green light, their howls deafening. They were ready to pounce. I had already resigned myself to my fate, and then, let out a low sigh. In an instant, a sharp arrow pierced through the air. 1 arrow. 2 arrows. 4 arrows. The wolves dropped to the ground, twitching in their death throes. In the moonlight, a young boy in red stood amidst the sea of corpses. His head tilted in amusement. He held a golden bow, raised high, a cruel grin on his lips. Behind him, a young eunuch, barely in his teens, trembled at the knees. His voice cracked as he stammered, Your Highness. What should we do with the wolves? The young boy jumped off the pile of corpses and, hands behind his back, spoke nonchalantly. Skin them. I froze, a cold shiver running down my spine. The wolves were still twitching, wailing in their last moments. The boy in red seemed no older than 5 or 6. His chubby face, reminiscent of a young milk dumpling. Yet his words about skinning the wolves were casual, as if he were asking for a simple task. The childlike innocence paired with a coldness so chilling was terrifying. I silently wondered which prince this was. In the 8th year of Xianxia, the court favored culture over martial arts. Among the royal heirs, few were skilled in archery or horsemanship. The young eunuch, trembling with fear, dared not move forward. The boy simply pulled a short dagger from his boot and tossed it to the eunuch. Skin them. Quickly. Afterward, he skipped over to where I lay. My heart raced, and I immediately closed my eyes, pretending to be dead. Hey, heading till Silhouette session. A live kid? The cold fingers touched my cheek. Startled, I opened my eyes, only to be met with two black, gleaming eyes, sharp as a wild wolf's. Warm. Alive. He stared at me for a few seconds before a wicked, excited smile curled on his lips. Be my little sister. Okay? 1 second. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. If you don't speak, then we'll skin you together. The boy's next words made the eunuch immediately rush to me, stuttering in panic. Your Highness. She can't speak yet. I blinked, gazing at him. The boy's lips curled into a carefree smile. I know. I'm just playing with her. This kid is brave. Not crying. I like her. The eunuch wiped sweat from his brow, muttering to himself. Could it be that she's too young and doesn't understand you're threatening her? The boy's sharp ears twitched, but he ignored him. He pointed to the wolf that was still twitching on the ground. What's the deal with this one? The eunuch's legs turned to jelly, and he fell to his knees, banging his head desperately. Your Highness. Spare me. I can't skin it. Please spare me. The boy calmly took the dagger and spoke in an eerily calm tone. You're really stupid. Watch carefully. Learn. He squatted down, moving quickly and cleanly. In just a few moments, he had skinned one wolf, the pelt now stripped of flesh. He casually pulled the freshly skinned pelt from the ground, dripping blood, and tossed it to the eunuch. Wrap it around her. Take her back to the palace. The eunuch was shaking as he wrapped the bloody wolf pelt around me. Under his breath, he muttered complaints. What kind of luck do I have? Everyone else gets promoted to the inner ministry. But I ended up with this crazy prince. Heaven. Why don't you just take me instead? My eyelids twitched violently. A prince? The Prince of Xianxia. Evander. From the 8th year. The tyrant Evander from 12 years later. Evander ascended the throne just a month before he was overthrown for his cruelty. In the end, he was slain by the Empress Dowager with a sword, dying on the spot. When he died, I was still stationed at the border. When I returned to the capital, the new emperor had ascended the throne, and the Empress Dowager ruled the court. The world was at peace. My heart sank. I was lucky to have survived. But somehow, I had ended up in the hands of this future tyrant. That night, the cold wind pierced through to the bone, and the horror at the mass grave left me terrified beyond measure. I fell gravely ill, and Evander sent someone to treat me. Only then did I barely recover and hang on to life. Afterward, my body remained weak and fatigued. The crown prince, having fulfilled my adsasho, Evander, had no choice but to settle me in a temple outside the city. Every month, he personally came to visit, bringing me medicine and food. He was not, as rumors suggested, debauched and cruel. In fact, he took meticulous care of me, attending to even the smallest details. He even sought out a master to teach me both martial and literary skills, aiming to strengthen my body and mind. When he combed my hair, he said, Gwendolyn, in times of chaos, It is best to learn as much as you can to protect yourself. I worked diligently, secretly reclaiming the combat skills of my past life. Whether in this life or the last, I remained decisive in battle. Within 10 paces, a master could be killed with a single strike. Every time he came to see me, he would measure my height. His tone gentle. Serafina, you've grown taller again. Soon you'll be as tall as your brother. 15 years had passed. A monk from the mountain sent word that I had recovered. Evander replied, I will come personally to fetch her. At 20, Evander stood tall and handsome, his appearance unmatched. He exuded the poise of a scholar. Yet he favored wearing bold red clothing. He carried a golden fan, sweeping through the streets in grandiose style. The city gossiped that this crown prince was capricious, his thoughts impossible to predict. Despite his youth, he was known for being ruthless and calculating. The right-wing faction, led by the prime minister, once sent him a plethora of beauties. Overnight, all of them were found dead, their corpses burned clean. The mansions of those who sent them were smeared with black dog blood. With the words "Return my life" scrawled in blood, those involved remained indoors for 7 days before daring to step out. The crown prince's victory became legend, sending shivers down the spines of anyone who heard it. But to me, Evander was my savior. He was my brother. The little eunuch, Thorn, who had once trembled in fear, still stood faithfully by his side. When he saw me, he bowed respectfully. Welcome home, Gwendolyn. Evander had given me the name Serafina. I smiled, my eyes narrowing like the crescent moon. The black Buddhist beads wound around his fingers, loosening and tightening. When he saw me, he opened his arms, a carefree smile spreading across his face. Serafina, come here. In the carriage returning to the capital, Evander leaned lazily on the soft cushion, watching me with a languid tone. Serafina, is there anything you want to do after we return to the city? I parted the curtain and gazed at the winding mountain road. With the innocence of a young girl, I smiled lightly. Of course. I want to eat all the delicious food in the capital with my brother. Watch plays. Enjoy dance performances. Ride horses. Drink wine. Evander raised his sleeve and gently tapped my forehead. At your age, you already think about drinking wine? I covered my forehead, pretending to be aggrieved. Ouch. Ouch. Brother. How old are you? And you still bully children? Evander laughed heartily. I turned my head, rubbing my tender forehead, but my eyes quickly grew cold. 15 years had passed. The Serafina family must have already reclaimed that false adopted daughter. If I counted the days, Lysander would take action at my brother Silas' birthday banquet in 6 months. This time, the rise and fall of the Serafina family would depend entirely on my brother's decision. As for me, I would only watch from the sidelines. The carriage, traveling discreetly, finally entered the bustling capital. The streets were as lively and noisy as ever. Street vendors selling sugar figurines, steamed buns, and tea crowded the sidewalks, their voices blending into the hum of the city. Suddenly, heaven so seldly, a familiar sound of silver bells reached my ears. Silas. I want this. And I want that. It was Lysandra. I opened the window. Lysander, dressed in a pink silk robe, was clinging to Silas' arm, acting coquettish. Silas, in a black brocade robe, smiled as he walked. His left arm was bandaged. Injured? Evander caught the intense gaze I directed toward them and smiled. Serafina, the eldest son of the Serafina family. Silas. If you're interested. Brother. You're teasing me again. I interrupted, shaking my head and blinking my eyes with feigned curiosity. They look impressive by their attire and demeanor. I just wanted to know how he got that injury. Evander picked up a grape and bit into it without changing his expression. Silas fought with Peregrine, the young master of the Nan Feng escort, for his sister. My eyes brightened. And then? Defeat. It's known throughout the city. I pouted, pretending to be naive. I thought he was some martial expert. Turns out, he's not so impressive. I was even thinking of having a match with him. But in my heart, I silently chewed on that name. Peregrine. The young master of the Nan Feng escort. Their business reached throughout the capital, even extending influence to the prime minister's mansion. Silas was quite bold. For Lysandra, he would even risk his life. It was true. After all, it was Lysandra. He was willing to harm his own sister to keep Lysandra by his side. Evander, noticing the change in my expression, leaned closer and asked, Serafina, why are you so interested in the Serafina family today? A sharp pang gripped my heart, and my cheeks turned red. I pushed him away. I don't care if he's from the Tang family or the Li family. I was just curious. I want to find someone to practice with. Brother, stop scaring me. Evander tilted his head and laughed. He popped another grape into his mouth. I'm also up for a sparring match. How about I accompany you? I raised my eyes to meet his. And smiled faintly. If you could accompany me, that would be wonderful. My gaze unconsciously shifted to the window, and my smile lingered. I met Silas' gaze. In that instant, I saw his pupils constrict in shock, his eyes wide with fear as they locked onto mine. I remained expressionless. A silence murk tugged at my lips. Cold and mocking. Silas froze in place. Behind him, Lysandra followed his gaze. She furrowed her brow, tugging at his hand as she playfully asked, Brother, what's wrong? It's nothing. Perhaps I just mistook something. Silas replied, his face pale. He watched the carriage fade away, his thoughts clearly wandering. What lowly maid dares to strike a lady of the Duke's household? Have you eaten a bear's heart? I stood perfectly still, coldly fixing my gaze on Lysandra's white, bone-chilling fingers. Her flaw was laughably obvious. The earlier exclamations from the male guests had already left those noble ladies sour. Their sudden rush to lecture me wasn't about standing up for the Serafina household, it was merely venting petty pride. Blossom, flustered and eager to defend me, began, This young lady is. I raised a hand to stop her. My voice light, you should step back. Then I lifted my eyes and let a small, amused smile play across my lips. I want to ask who actually saw me do it. Whoever slanders my name without pause won't live long. You'd be surprised how the world corrects such things. Lysandra's face visibly drained of color. She yelped, then whimpered that her ankle hurt. Now she claimed her whole leg had snapped. Standing at the front was Bellatrix, a noble heiress who'd long bullied daughters on the strength of her family fortune, and who had been in league with Lysandra. Her methods were cruder than most. Her expression hardened. She snapped, Filthy servant. Sharp-tongued, I'll have your tongue cut out. From the prince's residence. Another maid, Primrose, panicked and rushed forward to kneel. Mustn't, lady. Please, this one is the prince's. The prince's concubine? Bellatrix cut her off. Eyes ice cold. Think before you lie. Everyone knows our prince shuns women. The prince's household never keeps women. Whoever stops me will be dragged out and publicly flogged. Someone, cut out her tongue. If there's any trouble afterward, I'll take responsibility. I clapped once, smiling. Sister, can you really bear that burden? No one there dared openly offend Bellatrix. Primrose smashed her forehead to the floor in instant terror. Bellatrix's fury surged, and she raised her palm for a public spectacle. I couldn't be bothered to look up. I lifted my left hand a fraction. With only a sliver of strength, I pinned her raised hand midair so she couldn't move. In the next breath, my right hand moved like wind, striking left and right. Crisp slaps landed across her face in a rapid, drum-like series. Lowly maid chew. Let go. It hurts. It hurts so much. You bitch. How dare you? It hurts. Ah, it hurts. Ancestor. Hero. Please spare me. Her curses dissolved into pitiful pleading. The whole thing lasted a moment, and then I let go. Bellatrix slumped to the ground like her soul had been wrenched out, her haughty bearing gone. The proud young lady now sat with a swollen, stunned face, tearful and humiliated. The noble women and guests inhaled sharply, their eyes wide with shock. None had expected a seemingly frail maid to lay Bellatrix out like that. While Bellatrix still stared in frozen disbelief, I turned to the sobbing Lysandra on the ground. The lady of the Duke's household came to your defense. Yet you've managed to absolve yourself entirely. Tears brimmed in Lysandre's eyes. What are you saying? She cried. I said coldly. Did you fall on your own? Or did I trip you? We both know the truth. I straightened my sleeve and stepped forward as the noble women linked arms and instinctively backed away. Since everyone believes you were hurt because of me, I won't allow myself to be wronged. The nun hard motion. I stomped on Lysandra's ankle and twisted with a practiced shove. Pain shot through her until her eyes watered. She gasped. You. She caught sight of the man standing behind me and screamed. Brother. You'll avenge me. Brother. This maid has broken my leg. You'll be punished for this. At the cry, everyone turned. Silas's face went ashen as he strode toward me. He lowered his gaze until he stood before me. You let out a low sigh. He said. Ought to give the Serafina family an explanation. The noble women whispered. Silas dotes on his sister. This maid is done for. She's wicked, isn't she? I listened to them chatter and smiled. An explanation for what? I asked. Seeing Silas. Lysandra's tears flowed like a broken string of pearls. In a fragile voice she pleaded. Brother. Lysandra hurts so much. Silas crouched in a show of concern. I have already sent for the imperial physician. He rose. Cold as stone. I don't care who you are. You hurt Lysandra, then you must die. Tell me. Why did you deliberately cripple her? The noble women rumbled anew. Seems the rumors were true. Whenever Lysandra's involved, Silas loses his head. Tonight's the prince's banquet. Could Silas really spill blood in the prince's residence? That's extreme disrespect. Silas sneered. If you apologize, I can spare your life. Choose keep an arm. Or keep a leg. He still assumed, as in my past life. But I would take his misunderstanding. Accept the harm without a word. Under my sleeve my hand tightened. Then relaxed. And I replied with a smile. The one who should apologize is Serafina. She tore my dress on purpose. She should compensate. If I've stepped on her foot, that settles it. But the one who slandered my name and falsely accused me, should she not apologize to me? By then the prince should have arrived at the banquet. Silas's temper flared. He gave the order. And a few noble women allied with the Serafina house grabbed me to restrain me. Then die. They spat. Silas sent someone to fetch a long sword. Bellatrix, having recovered enough, waddled over with her swollen face and dripped the veil from my face. She hesitated. Then struck me a vicious slap. A fox spirit indeed. Bring her tongue out first. Then ruin her face. The wind rose suddenly in front of the garden gate, scattering the murmurs of the courtyard. Mother. Is this Gwendolen? Evander's steps faltered. And his gaze darkened instantly. He had just gone to fetch the queen but was met with this commotion. At the end of the corridor, I was being held up by two people. My cheeks swollen and bruised. Evander's face turned ashen. He strode forward, and before he could speak, someone dared to challenge him. Bellatrix. With her neck stiffened a faint smile. Curtsy. Your Highness. This vile servant dared to impersonate one of your concubines. I merely gave her a slight reprimand. Please don't hold it against me. Before she could finish her sentence. Get out. Evander coldly raised his hand, his sleeve swishing with force. And Bellatrix was sent flying backward like a kite with its string cut. The entire courtyard fell silent. Evander's gaze was as deep as an abyss as he approached, his stride powerful. The noble women holding me, frozen in terror, released me after just a glance from him. I secretly smiled. In the next moment, I was pulled tightly into his arms. Who allowed you to touch her? His voice was low and cold, carrying the weight of destruction. Everyone's breath caught in their throats. I weakly clung to his sleeve, hiding in his embrace, sobbing. Brother. They bullied Gwendolen. It hurts so much too. The noble women were silent, utterly confused. What's going on here? The queen arrived. Her face darkened. Your Majesty. May you live in peace. Everyone bowed in greeting. The queen's gaze landed on Evander, then shifted to me. In her eyes, there was a brief flash of shock and surprise. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by calm. Evander. Is this? Gwendolyn? Evander helped me to my feet. And I lowered my head in respect. Greetings. Your Majesty. The Queen smiled warmly. She's just like her. Truly like her. Come. Come to my side. In my past life, I had attended many palace banquets. But never had the Queen favored me. The closest I had come to her was when I passed by her palanquin in the Imperial Garden. Evander gestured for me to go over. The Queen took my hand, her tone affectionate. Who bullied you? Tell mother. The Queen was truly interesting. She recognized me as her daughter without hesitation. I was unashamed and smiled brightly. Everyone. Just those few words made everyone in the courtyard freeze in shock. Bellatrix knelt. Lysandra knelt. Silas stood motionless for a few seconds. Then hurriedly knelt. I held the Queen's delicate hand, feigning strength with a gleam in my eyes. They didn't know who I was. So they treated me poorly. But, Queen, I don't wish to hold a grudge. A simple apology will suffice. After all, today is the flower festival. And business must come first. Upon hearing me call her mother, Silas panicked and kowtowed repeatedly. I didn't know she was the princess. Please punish me, Your Majesty. The Queen's eyes softened as she looked at me. Gwendolyn. You are as kind-hearted as ever. Very well. As you wish. If the princess says she doesn't mind, then let it be. She lowered her gaze to the kneeling Bellatrix and the others. Her displeasure evident. Are those from the Bellatrix family? What's wrong with your face? Bellatrix, terrified, knelt in place. It's my fault. I tripped and fell. My face was damaged. I frightened the princess. Please forgive me, Your Majesty. The noble women, along with Silas, hurriedly bowed in apology. Princess, please forgive us. I waved my hand. It's no matter. The Queen, reluctant to release my hand, said, Wait. My sister may have forgiven you, but I haven't agreed yet. Primrose stood respectfully behind Evander. Silent. She must have already explained everything to him. Evander's gaze on me softened as he slowly raised his eyes, pointing at Bellatrix. Just now. It was you who shouted, wanting to cut out Gwendolyn's tongue? Bellatrix staggered back, her legs shaking. She opened her mouth to argue. But in the next instant, no one saw his movement. Only Evander's finger was seen landing on the side of her neck. Just 2 quick touches. Bellatrix's throat constricted, and she couldn't control her tongue, which fell out in an unnatural way. A short dagger flashed, cutting through the air like the sharpest of blades. The sound of her tongue dropping was sharp, blood splashing onto her skirt. Silence. A deathly silence. Bellatrix's tongue had been severed. Only I saw it clearly. In that brief moment, Evander's figure moved like a shadow. In everyone else's eyes, there was only blood and fear. He calmly wiped his fingers with a clean white handkerchief. Take her away. Send her back to the Marquis house. Then, let out a low sigh. As if remembering something. He looked up and scanned the crowd. Anyone else sigh? Lysandra? Lysandra was so terrified. She was trembling. As she kowtowed, her forehead was bleeding from the force. Silas stepped in front of her, barely maintaining his composure. Your Highness. I'm willing to take my sister's punishment. I exchanged a glance with Evander. The Queen was never fond of Evander's brutal ways. He shouldn't provoke her publicly because of me. Evander coldly spoke. Your love for your sister is admirable. And I appreciate it. I'll spare you this time. The Queen's expression darkened. Her face stormy. The atmosphere at the banquet had dropped to freezing point. After that day, Bellatrix's family's young lady was taken back to her house. Her vocal cords ruined. The Serafina family's young lady was forced back into seclusion, never daring to show her face. As for Silas, he drank alone at the banquet, a pitiful sight. The usual spoiled playboys exchanged sly smiles. He offended the crown prince and went against the princess. Silas doesn't have long to live. In my past life, I earned Silas the title of general under his name. Now, he willingly stayed in the family estate, protecting Lys and her for a lifetime of peace. The Serafina family. in his generation, had fallen, with no merit or name to his own. Silas, to outsiders, was nothing more than a spoiled son, living under the shadow of the old Duke of the State. When the banquet ended, I finished applying my medicine and sat alone in the pavilion, drinking strong liquor. The fiery taste burned down my throat, and the heat spread throughout my body. The brothers who once fought and died by my side, though not by blood, were the ones I could trust with my back. Now, in the capital, I had no one I could trust. I should have realized by now. No one in this world would do good by me without reason. Evander saved me because I had the same eyes as his sister. Princess Seraphina, daughter of the imperial concubine, was born on the same day, the same month, the same year as Evander. She drowned when she was 4. This was a royal secret. On that day, Seraphina had fallen into the water while trying to save Evander. Soon after, the imperial concubine hanged herself. The imperial concubine and the queen were sisters. The Song family had 2 beauties, both of whom caught the emperor's eye. The imperial concubine and the queen shared a deep bond. Evander knew he had made a grave mistake. Until 15 years ago, when he found me at the mass grave. Gwendolyn, did I scare you today? The night breeze brushed against the candle, and Evander stood in the corridor with a wine jug in hand. His face, usually composed, now held a hint of something fragile, almost imperceptible. Are you all right? I'm fine, Your Highness. I smiled naturally, though my fingertips trembled beneath my sleeve. Perhaps the reason he saved me was simply because the queen longed for the child of her late sister. Evander extended his hand to me. I instinctively stepped back by half a pace. Gwendolyn? He froze. And in that moment, a fleeting pain flashed in his eyes. After a pause, he spoke softly. Do you resent me for hiding certain things from you? His sigh was light, lost in the night air. When I saved you, it wasn't because you resembled my sister, nor was it to please my mother. It was because your eyes made me feel that you were fighting with all your might to live. He tipped back the wine and swallowed, his Adam's apple moving. Perhaps it was just a delusion. You were only just born. What could you understand about longing? But all these years, I truly have cared for you. You were weak since childhood, and many times, your life hung by a thread. I had to call upon a ghost doctor to treat you. He specialized in using poison as medicine. Even I could barely endure the excruciating pain of it. Your will to survive far exceeded what I could ever imagine. Under the moonlight, his expression softened, his brow heavy with thought. You were so small. So small. And yet, when being treated, you never cried, never fussed. I fell silent. In my past life, the poisons that burned through my veins, the agonizing trials that nearly claimed my life, the countless wounds, I endured them all. Bone-scraping treatments, poisoning to cure poisoning, none of that was the worst pain. It's all behind me now. The clearest memory I have was of the times I burned with fever as a child. Evander sitting anxiously beside my bed, helpless and desperate. He fed me medicine spoon by spoon, his voice gentle as he soothed me. Gwendolyn, be good. Hold on. Once the bitter medicine is done, I'll get you some candied fruit. The poison from the ghost doctor. Those wounds. None of it hurt. But my heart ached. Is Evander ever showed tenderness? It was always for me. Evander reached out and tousled my hair. This is the first time I've seen a woman with such endurance. I'm also curious what will become of this stubborn little sickly kitten. My throat tightened, and I couldn't utter a single word of distance. He dropped his hand and spoke softly, his voice almost a whisper. I told you I would protect you for life. Now that you've grown up safely, I'm glad. The night was still. I looked up. My eyes tinged with red. My voice was soft, barely a whisper. I'm glad too, Your Highness. The person I met in the mass grave that night, it was you. A month later, on Silas's birthday, the Seraphina family hosted a feast at their residence, inviting His Highness the Prince to join in the celebration. Evander, knowing that I enjoyed lively events, brought me along to the banquet. That day, Silas was in high spirits. Thanks to the prince's presence, The young men from Darius' family showed respect toward Silas. As the evening wore on, Silas, slightly drunk, slurred, Next time. I'll drink with Percival again." He was escorted back to his room. Before long, screams from a woman could be heard from within. Evander and I exchanged a glance before lifting our skirts and heading toward the room. Just like in my past life, Lysander had drugged the wine. The crowd gathered at the door, and I tugged Evander forward. Inside, Lysander trembled, wrapped in a blanket, her shoulders partially exposed. Silas knelt on the floor, his upper body completely exposed, trembling from a bucket of cold water that had just been thrown over him. Evander quickly covered my eyes. I struggled to pull his hand away. He firmly blocked me once again. Evander wrapped his arm around my waist from behind, leaned down, and whispered in my ear with a low chuckle, "Serafina, do not look at indecency." A shiver ran down my spine. I froze, having to still my sigh. Unable to move. Matilda's sharp voice rang out. "What is this behavior? What is this?" Evander shook the golden fan in his hand and laughed. "Madam, what is going on here? Brother and sister. What is this?" "Your Highness." Matilda, her face pale, immediately fell to her knees. Panicking. "Your Highness. Lysandra and my son are not blood siblings. Lysandra is an orphan my son brought home." Lysandra, still wrapped in the blanket, bowed on the bed. "Your Highness. Silas and I truly love each other. I am willing to marry him." Silas also knelt and bowed. "Please, Your Highness, bless us with marriage." Evander stroked his chin thoughtfully. I was held by him, secretly pinching the back of his hand. Evander nodded. "Let it be done. Silas and Lysandra are a perfect match. They shall marry on a chosen day." Leaving Silas's family, we boarded the carriage back to the palace. Evander lay on the soft couch, smiling. "My little kitten has grown up and now knows how to hurt people." I pouted, feeling a bit defiant. It was I who spread the news about the prince visiting Silas's family. The young men who had been present during the scandal. They were also people I had arranged to be there. The Serafina family could not possibly hide the truth. I had been quietly pushing the situation, subtly helping things along. "Can you tell me, brother, why you did this?" I propped my chin on my hand, kneeling in front of the couch as I ate a piece of candied fruit. "Why else? I'm just a kind person. I can't bear to see lovers parting in bitterness. They are so deeply in love. How could I not help them?" I knew he had been reborn. He could foresee all of this. Lysander would drug the wine. He would do something foolish, publicly shamed. But he allowed Lysandra's actions. In his heart, he must have wanted to marry her. In my past life, it was this very thing that made Silas loathe me. Now, in this life, I pushed things forward. I wanted to see Silas's beloved wife. Was she truly the right match? As I was lost in thought, Evander reached out and playfully tapped the tip of my nose. I came back to myself and found him smiling gently at me. His face as smooth as jade. "You're so young. Do you even understand what love is?" I glanced up at him, feigning deep thought. "Just a little more knowledgeable than my brother." Evander chuckled lightly and flicked my forehead. "You're being evasive." The carriage rocked along the cobbled path, and he leaned back, half reclined, looking at me with a smile that seemed neither here nor there. "So you caused such a scene with the Silas family today, just because of your kind heart?" I continued nibbling on the candied fruit, my tones saccharine. "Exactly. I can't bear to see lovers torn apart. Don't you think their passionate love is touching, brother?" Evander's penetrating gaze settled on my face. He didn't press further, but reached out to tuck a stray lock of hair behind my ear. "Since it's what you want, I'll see it done." "But..." Evander raised an eyebrow. "Your courage is growing. Remember, proper boundaries between men and women and not be too curious about things you shouldn't see." I hid both hands behind my back and blinked innocently. "Not at all." Evander gazed at me, then sighed. "Serafina, you're only 15. You still don't understand what love is." I propped my chin up with my hand, tilting my head as I looked at him. Then, does my older brother understand? He paused. His smile tight. Of course I do. Then, let out a low sigh. Why don't you teach me? I leaned in closer. What is love? Evander stared at me, his fingertip brushing the rim of his wine glass. His voice was low, as though sinking into the depths of night. Love is wanting to protect her, ensuring she lives in peace. Love is not tolerating anyone who dares to hurt her. Love is even when she seeks to hurt others. You still step in to smooth over her mistakes. The carriage suddenly fell quiet. My heart tight, and as if someone had gripped it in their hand for a moment. Evander's smile was casual, carefree. But you're young, so it's natural not to understand. No rush. I'll teach you slowly. I chewed the candied fruit, my heart racing wildly. He reached out again and tapped my nose. Go rest when we get back. Don't cause any more trouble, little cat. His tone was lazy, indulgent, but I knew this crown prince, Evander, would tear through the fangs of fate for me, even if it meant a future of endless damnation. After the court session, Evander insisted on taking me to the temple. On a whim. He found an ordinary carriage and insisted on going with me. Mother asked me to seek a peace charm. Come with me. The carriage jolted along the bumpy road toward the outskirts of town. Midway, we suddenly heard shouting from outside the carriage. A group of people had blocked the way. It was a robbery. The robbers were snarling, demanding money. Evander sighed lightly, his voice cold as he ordered the driver. Zephyr. The carriage stopped. The unremarkable coachman leapt into action, easily subduing the robbers. I lifted my skirt and stepped out of the carriage, but I froze when I heard the leader of the robbers sneer. Odd. Unlucky year. My heart clenched. This robber. I recognized him. In my past life, when the Serafina family fell, Lysandra hanged herself. My father, furious at my cruelty, administered a severe punishment. He beat me 50 lashes. My brother left the family in anger, and my mother sent me to find him. That day, my mother grabbed my collar and yelled, "It's all your fault, Lysandra's death. And your brother's departure. Serafina, go find your brother, or you'll pay with your life." I spent the entire day and night searching, but I couldn't find him. I collapsed by the roadside from exhaustion and a fever. When I woke, several rough men were binding me, dragging me across the ground. They were shouting, "We're hitting the jackpot today." Then, let out a low sigh. A simple carriage passed by. It saved me. The coachman wore a straw hat that obscured his face, but his movements were quick and precise. I felt the pain in my back flare up. The carriage owner left a bottle of ointment behind. The coachman fed me a pill, whispering, "Miss, heading to filled my session. The master told me to tell you. Live well." I was delirious from fever, unable to see the master's face clearly. All I remembered was, I turned instinctively. Everything was exactly the same as in my past life. Evander's black signet ring, the ordinary carriage, the straw-hatted coachman, and the same time, the same place. So it was true. In my past life, I had crossed paths with Evander, the crown prince, and a crown prince. In such a way. I gave a bitter laugh. In both lives, I owed him too much. I could never repay it. I watched Evander, who was resting with his eyes closed in the carriage. The coachman respectfully spoke. "Master, how shall we handle them?" Evander slowly parted his lips, his voice sharp. "Kill them." I felt no surprise. In my past life, I had saved a life. The next day, I wiped out the thieves' lair. These people were just small fry. The bandits burned and pillaged neighboring villages and sold innocent girls. They deserved to die. Thinking about it, though Evander seemed to kill without mercy, he never harmed anyone who didn't deserve it. As for the women sent to the mansion, they were all innocent girls forced into prostitution. Evander had secretly sent them to the southern border, under the guise of their deaths. But why? Why would he take on such a notorious reputation? Becoming a feared villain? I lifted my skirt and rushed into the carriage without hesitation. I threw myself into Evander's arms. His eyes fluttered open slightly, but he naturally caught me, holding me tightly. What's wrong? Gwendolyn? Are you scared? I shook my head, holding him tight. Heaven had given me a second chance for a reason. For a moment like this. To save him. The day of Silas' wedding was set for the 8th of April. An auspicious day. I did not attend the ceremony. He married the woman he loved. Just as he wished. Naturally. He didn't want me to show up. Lysander secretly bought more than a dozen oil barrels, smuggling them into the estate via waterways. On the night of the ceremony, Matilda's family of 30 or more perished in the flames. Lysander detonated the barrels of gunpowder. And in the chaos, she escaped. I caught her on the spot. I had her sent to the Ministry of Justice. Only Silas miraculously escaped, having drunk himself into a stupor in the pavilion, and was saved by the officials. The outcome was expected. Despite all my warnings in the past life, Silas never believed. He only believed Lysander loved him. That she was willing to erase all hatred for his sake. The next time I saw Silas was in the bustling street. The bride set fire to the mansion. And over 30 members of the Duke's family died in the flames. The emperor was furious. After an investigation, it was revealed that Lysander was the orphan of the traitor Alaric, whose family had been destroyed 7 years ago. The emperor had personally assigned my father to investigate the case. She hated the Serafina family deeply, concealing her identity for many years. Seeking vengeance for blood, Lysander was sentenced to be executed after autumn. Silas was a lost soul, stumbling through the streets, like a walking corpse. I stopped my carriage and blocked his way. He looked up dazedly, muttering to himself. I was wrong. Serafina. I shouldn't have brought Lysander home. Serafina. I killed my father and mother. I killed you too. I lowered my eyes, pretending not to recognize him, and spoke coldly. Silas. What are you saying? Who is Serafina? He followed me all the way to the Crown Prince's mansion. As Evander came out to greet me, Silas suddenly snatched a sword from the guards, shouting desperately. Your Highness. Please. Show mercy to Serafina. A flash of blood. Silas collapsed to the ground. He had committed suicide at the gate of the Crown Prince's mansion. A storm of emotions rose in my heart. Evander rushed over, covering my eyes, gripping my ice-cold hand, and protecting me. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. I'm here. I was shaken, feverish and restless. Evander no longer attended court. He stayed by my bedside every day, feeding me medicine, wiping my sweat. In my dreams, I called out his name. He gripped my hand tightly and whispered. Gwendolyn. I'm here. I haven't left. The queen sent a lady in waiting to inquire about me. And Evander, in a fit of rage, smashed the screen and shouted. Go tell your queen. I don't know why Silas is committing suicide in front of my door. But if the Court of Judicial Affairs wants to investigate, let them. Let them treat it as if I killed him. I've killed countless people. What does one more matter? I gripped his hand tightly, tears flowing uncontrollably in my dream. The lady-in-waiting's face was expressionless as she said, Your Highness. The Queen summons you to the palace. Evander turned to her, his voice like thunder. Leave. When I woke, Evander was bent over beside my bed, his eyes filled with joy. You're awake. I had slept for 7 days and nights. Evander had tried every method he could to pull me back from the brink of death, as the ghost doctor had described it. The ghost doctor said you were this close. Just this close. He pulled me into his arms, sobbing. I thought I would never see you again. I was held tightly in his embrace, my voice soft as I whispered. Evander. Do you know who I am? I know. He replied firmly. Serafina's stillborn second daughter. I knew it all along. Gwendolyn. No matter who you are, I will never let you leave me. I closed my eyes, choking back my emotions, and said, All right. The prince's absence from court, all due to a woman, caused an uproar among the officials. The emperor, desperate, was burning with anxiety. During the morning court session, the emperor suddenly spat out a mouthful of black blood and collapsed in the hall. The queen hurriedly went to tend to him. That night, the emperor passed away. To secure his position, the prince immediately ascended the throne. With the imperial title in hand, the winds of the world shifted in an instant. Everything was progressing too smoothly. On the day of his coronation, I disguised myself as a man and followed Evander closely. At the moment of the coronation, the empress suddenly snatched the crown from his head, her eyes wild with madness. I have a decree. The late emperor's chosen successor is my son, Peregrine. The empress's faction of ministers immediately stirred, and the officials demanded Evander abdicate. But Peregrine was only 8 years old. Evander turned to his mother, his face full of confusion. Why? The empress pointed at him, her voice sharp with fury. You are unworthy. I only want you dead. She pulled a jeweled hairpin from her hair and hurled it toward Evander's chest. In a flash, I stepped in front of him. I seized the hairpin and kicked the empress to the ground. The entire court gasped in shock. With a wave of her hand, the imperial guards rushed in. She coldly commanded, "Seize her." I narrowed my eyes, my wrist flashing with the glint of a hidden arrow. One step, one strike. I sealed throats and shattered enemies. As I moved swiftly, countless assailants fell behind me. I returned to Evander's side, my eyes icy. Who dares harm him? Seek death. The hall was in chaos. The ministers wide-eyed with disbelief. No one had expected Evander to be accompanied by such a master, someone capable of taking on 100 men. Evander wiped away the tear from his eye and drew his sword from the floor. The tip of the sword pointed directly at the empress. His voice cold and resolute. "Mother, I have always obeyed you, for I respect you as my mother." "Why?" Then, let out a low sigh. "Do you wish to kill me?" The empress's face turned pale, her throat choked with emotion. I slowly took off my veil, my long hair cascading like a waterfall. I glanced at the empress and said, "Because she is not your real mother. Evander, you are the son of the former beloved concubine. Your father, the late emperor, loved your mother deeply, but could only make the legitimate daughter his empress. To put you on the throne, he swapped you with Serafina." I landed with a heavy thud, each word sharp as a dagger. "Serafina is the empress's real daughter. She died because of you. And that is why the empress hates you so much." Evander stepped back, his eyes filled with disappointment and shock. I pointed directly at the empress and continued to reveal the shocking truth. It was her. It was the empress who poisoned the late emperor slowly, killing him. The empress's eyes were wild with madness, her voice shrill and piercing. "What do you understand? I was trapped in the palace, enduring countless concubines beside him. But his heart was always with my sister. What made her so much better than me? The low-born concubine's daughter, daring to call herself my sister? I spit on her." Her face twisted in fury, no longer rational. "Evander, he did everything to make sure you inherited the throne, willing to die for it. Even though you've done terrible things, killed countless people, he still placed you on the highest throne. Why? Why?" I stepped in front of Evander, my voice sharp and cold. "Evander has never done evil. Those he killed, each one deserved it." Evander's eyes flickered. I continued, "You were merely using Evander's feelings for you. He's been planning, step by step. And you think he didn't know that you wanted to harm him today? He's been gambling. Gambling that the mother who raised him would still care, that she wouldn't truly harm him. In his past life, he had given up, though his martial arts were unparalleled. He allowed the empress to strike him with poison." I turned to look at Evander, my tone firm. "For over a decade, you've done enough as a son. Serafina's death has nothing to do with you. Evander, stand tall." Evander's expression was calm, and he slowly stepped forward, walking up to the empress. His cold voice rang out with authority. "Guards, send the empress to the tomb to guard it for the rest of her life. She is not to leave." Evander ultimately abdicated voluntarily, and Peregrine ascended to the throne. The regents and the chancellor were all Evander's close allies, tasked with aiding the new emperor. From that moment, the court was orderly, and peace returned to the empire. Adander took me with him, traveling the world, leaving the affairs of state behind. We only sought each other's company, in a world of our own. We visited famous mountains and rivers, saw peach blossoms covering entire hills, snow falling on ancient temples. We wandered the waters of the Jiangnan region, where lanterns twinkled in the night. Years passed. Late one night, under a moonlit sky, Evander gently held my hand and asked in a soft voice, "How did you know so much? Your strength, in your youth, could not be that of an ordinary girl." I smiled, leaning against him, my gaze gentle. "Perhaps it's fate from a past life that brought us together in this one. In my previous life, you saved me. In this life, it was heaven's plan for me to protect you, so I would have no regrets." His warm hand caressed my hair, and he leaned down to kiss my lips. "Then in this life, you'll never escape." I laughed softly, my heart at peace. "I won't run. In this life, I only wish to stay by your side." From then on, all past grievances and enmities were carried away by the wind. Through storms and trials, we walked hand in hand, living a life of peace. Beyond the palace walls, the world was ours. Together, from dawn to dusk, through silent years. With him by my side. That is my world. When I brought up divorce with Alexander, he was cooing to his mistress on the phone. Upon hearing me, he smiled and tried to persuade. "There's a 30-day divorce cooling off period. You can back out anytime during this time. Everyone says we're the most well-matched couple in Beijing. Childhood sweethearts. Perfectly matched in social status. But the person in Alexander's heart has never been me. In my past life, I thought that once we were married, he'd settle down and live properly with me. Until he stripped my father of power on the board of directors, risking everything to protect his mistress outside, which ultimately led to my death from depression. So in this second chance at life, I will never go back on my decision." I looked at the pop-up messages. "Now that you plan to divorce him, can I take your place?" Of course. As the message was sent, the divorce procedures neared completion. After the staff left, I put the receipt into my bag. Alexander's deep voice rang in my ears. "Isabella, you can still change your mind anytime." At this, I looked up at him. The living room lights brightly outlined Alexander's deep-set eyes and the refined elegance of his noble upbringing. More handsome than any male star in a magazine. In my past life, I loved him so fiercely, crashing into walls until my head bled, yet I refused to let go. The corners of my red lips curled into a mocking arc. "Alexander, what makes you think I'd regret it?" Alexander froze, then smiled again. "I just worry you'll regret it. Marriage isn't a trivial matter. After all, he was always like this. Though the same age as me, he always acted like a calculating elder, tolerating all my petty tempers. He remembered all my preferences. He'd cross half of Beijing to find me after a single phone call. And after dinner, he'd hold my hand and walk with me along Chang'an Avenue. I naively thought this was love. Until his first love, Cecilia, was exposed for having an affair and got into trouble. Even while in North America, he asked friends to protect her. He even rushed to the hospital without hesitation as soon as he landed, forgetting it was our wedding anniversary. He left me alone on the top floor of China World Trade Center until dawn, making me the joke of our entire social circle. At the time, I quarreled and fussed with him. I demanded to know, "What am I to you?" Alexander held me in his arms and coaxed warily. "Isabella, I won't see her again. We'll live well together from now on." I believed him. But in return for my trust, Alexander kept Cecilia in Fantasies International. When the truth came out, my father had Cecilia sent to the hospital, which led to Alexander stripping my father of power on the board, leaving him in a miserable old age. I had a huge argument with Alexander, vowing to blacklist Cecilia. This provoked the normally gentle and self-controlled Alexander to choke my neck like a furious beast. "Isabella, if you dare touch her again, I won't hesitate to fight you to the death." Love makes those in power bow and turns the self-restrained into maniacs. How deeply Alexander must have loved Cecilia, willing to risk his life for her. The most ironic part? I was his legal wife. We fell into a heavy silence. Alexander seemed about to say something but was interrupted by a phone call. The moment the screen lit up, Cecilia's delicate and beautiful face appeared, stinging my eyes with tears. Alexander answered the phone and stood up, his voice softer than he'd ever been with me. Finished the night shoot? Stay home and wait for me. His voice faded as he walked away. Julian called, asking cautiously, Isabella, are you serious about this? I didn't answer immediately, my gaze falling on the wedding photo on the wall in the photo. I wasn't looking at the camera. My eyes were filled with Alexander, whose gaze never once landed on me. Just like all these years, Alexander would never love me, nor would he realize I'd loved him since childhood. Here's a chance for you, if you dare marry me. Come. When I spoke, I was startled to find my throat felt as if slashed by a blade, each word coming out hoarse and painful. Julian replied boldly, wait for me. I'm on my way. My gaze returned to the wedding photo. Alexander, I was never someone who couldn't live without you. The next day, I moved out of Xianxia mansion. This was the house my parents had bought for me, where I'd lived since college. After we married, Alexander moved in with me. His mother had been unhappy, but he'd brushed her off, saying I was used to living here. Later I learned that the upstairs unit had been the love nest he'd shared with Cecilia. Every early morning, after I fell asleep, he'd sneak upstairs to reminisce about the past. In the morning, he'd pretend to return from a job and bring me a steamer of my favorite fried buns. All those years, the tenderness I thought was real had been nothing but honey-coated poison. 7 days after moving out of Xianxia, Alexander messaged me. Just got back from Berlin and brought you a gift. Can you send me your current address? If I hadn't been reborn, and if I hadn't seen that Cecilia's new film was shot in Berlin that morning, I might have been touched. Now I blocked Alexander outright. Even the sight of him annoyed me. That evening, as I left Long Tai Group, I saw Julian's black Range Rover parked by the roadside. He wore a black jacket, his tall frame exuding the unruly charm I remembered, yet his aura carried the sharpness honed by the military. Passers-by couldn't help but stop and stare. Julian was the posthumous son of my grandfather's bodyguard, nominally my brother. After my grandfather discovered his feelings for me, he'd sent Julian to train in the Northwest. In my past life, we'd only met once before my death. Then, hadn't so celebrated session. Julian had said hoarsely, Isabella, just say the word, and I'll take you away right now. But I'd refused him, as firmly as I'd rejected his confession that summer after the college entrance exams. Brother, I don't like you that way. The person I like is Alexander. Julian was the most outstanding among our courtyard-born peers. Even without family support, he'd fought his way to the top. A child of heaven like him had likely suffered his biggest setback because of me. Thinking of this, I was too embarrassed to know how to greet him. Julian spoke first, in the lazy tone I knew so well. Haven't seen you in ages. And you don't even call me brother anymore? I teased him as I had in childhood. So did you bring me a gift? Then, right out a lull sigh. Brother? Of course. Julian handed me a gift box, the latest high-end jewelry collection I adored. The biggest difference between Alexander and Julian was that the latter always put me first. I hosted a welcome dinner for Julian at Rong Pai restaurant. Throughout the meal, he took care of me, but never mentioned the recent events. It wasn't until he walked me to my apartment building that he said, Isabella, there are still 19 days left in your cooling-off period with Alexander. When the time comes, if you're still willing, we'll get our marriage license. Those remaining 19 days were both a buffer period for Julian and me to start anew and a countdown to my final farewell to Alexander. As our eyes met, my heart skipped a beat, and I nodded softly. Unbeknownst to me, this scene was watched by Alexander from a car across the street. He slowly removed his glasses, his long eyes narrowing into a pool of impenetrable darkness. The next day, I opened my bedroom where to find Alexander in the living room. He pulled out a dining chair and sat down. The table set with my favorite fried buns and yam pork congee. His tone entirely casual. Come have breakfast. I'll drive you to Long Tai later. I stared at him coldly. Alexander. Need I remind you we're already divorced? Your uninvited presence here is illegal trespassing. So close that I could see Alexander's jaw tense, as if suppressing a surge of emotion. But in an instant, he composed himself. Isabella, I've withdrawn the divorce application. He stood up and approached me, a smile on his face. In my past life, I'd always suspected Alexander knew about my years-long crush. Otherwise, where did he get the confidence that a simple apology would make me continue playing the role of his loving wife? Alexander, if you won't divorce me, could it be you've fallen in love with me? Alexander's smile faded, his eyes turning cold. Isabella, you're not a child. You know our families are intertwined. Divorce isn't in our best interest right now. I'd grown up in this elite circle and understood such truths well. That's why in my past life, I'd refused to divorce until my death. But I'd already sacrificed a lifetime for this marriage. Was I supposed to sacrifice another? Alexander, you don't love me. And I don't love you anymore. I thought I'd be calm. But my voice trembled uncontrollably. How long do you want this mutually tortuous marriage to last? You've already wasted 6 years of my youth. And Cecilia has been your secret lover for 6 years. Do you plan to make us suffer for the rest of our lives? Alexander, the line between cowardice and selfishness should have a limit. I'd always been bright and proud in front of Alexander. He'd never seen me so hysterical. The irony? He was the one who'd driven me to this. Alexander stared at me in silence for a moment, as if making a difficult decision. If you're still unhappy, I can send Cecilia away. I tilted my head back to hold back tears, laughing bitterly. Send her away. Or hide her somewhere else? Alexander ground his teeth, then sneered after a long pause. Are you so eager to divorce me because of Julian? I couldn't hold back any more. I slapped him across the face. Tears fell as I shouted, "Get out!" That day, Alexander and I parted on bad terms. When I calmed down, I used my influence to resubmit the divorce application and contacted a lawyer to start dividing our assets. Julian had been transferred back to Beijing and was going through the formalities for his new position. He asked me out for meals when free, and I occasionally went, though I was mostly busy with company work. Ever since I joined Long Tai, my father had made it clear he'd hand the company over to me when he retired. In my past life, I'd been so focused on winning back Alexander that during the power transition, Alexander had easily stripped my father of his authority. Coincidentally, next year's tribute film Spring Tide was being greenlit. As an investor, I saw Cecilia at the audition. The entertainment industry was full of beauties, but Cecilia was in a league of her own. Her misty eyes, naturally rosy lips, dimples when she smiled, and her soft, Jianghan-accented voice. Isabella, I've signed with the Hong Kong company and will leave Beijing next Tuesday. Ironically, next Tuesday was also the day my cooling-off period with Alexander would end. I wasn't surprised Cecilia chose to leave Alexander. They'd been each other's first loves. Once passionately in love. But she had her principles. The year we got engaged, she'd broken up with him voluntarily, only to be coerced into staying by Alexander using her sister as leverage. In my past life, by the end, her sister had died because of Alexander. And with nothing left, Cecilia had compromised to be his nameless mistress. I didn't hate her, but I couldn't bring myself to like her either. Cecilia apologized to me. Isabella, I know a single sorry can't undo the harm, but my existence has indeed caused you pain. So, and so. I'm sorry. I accept your apology, but I won't forgive you. After saying that, I turned to leave and met Alexander's eyes. Dark as ink. Alexander shielded Cecilia behind him, staring intently at me. Isabella, I'll send Cecilia away. Why are you still looking for her? His tone and posture were those of someone fiercely protecting their loved one. Even though I had learned to let go, the scene before me still made my eyes sting. Alexander, if I wanted to cause trouble for Cecilia, I wouldn't need to show up in person. I raised an eyebrow sarcastically. You're getting older, but not wiser. In a family like ours, if you truly want to target someone, you don't need to do it yourself. With just a glance, there are people eager to curry favor and take care of it. Alexander looked at Cecilia. Why didn't you tell me? Cecilia's mouth twitched slightly. Then she regained her usual gentleness. You came in and immediately picked a fight with Isabella. Not even giving me a chance to speak. A trademark gentle smile hung on Alexander's face. Isabella. I was too hasty. So. I didn't want to say another word to him and turned to leave. Just then, you let out a low sorry. A shrill horse neigh pierced the sky. And a chestnut horse galloped wildly toward us. Be careful. Faster than Alexander's urgent voice was his action. The moment the horse charged in, he almost immediately pulled Cecilia into his arms. Before I could react, I was thrown into the air by the frenzied horse and slammed into a tree, my back and chest burned with pain. Alexander helped me up, his voice barely hiding his concern. Isabella. Where does it hurt? Does it hurt badly? I blinked, eyes moist from the pain, and suddenly understood why. Even now, Alexander could still easily stir my emotions. Because of resentment. But Alexander, if you had been as cold as ice toward me, I wouldn't still be unreconciled after 2 lifetimes. It's just that you love Cecilia yet still treat me with tenderness and concern. So who do you really love? That day, I passed out from the pain in Alexander's arms. After being taken away by an ambulance, the doctor said I had 2 broken ribs and minor internal bleeding, and I underwent surgery for almost a whole night. That evening, Alexander was whipped by his father and forced to apologize to my parents. But my mother, Isabella's mother, blocked the door and vowed to get a divorce. When I woke up, I had already missed the scheduled cooling-off period. Isabella's mother wiped away tears and blamed my father. If we had let Isabella marry Julian back then, she wouldn't have suffered so much. Julian stood beside me, feeding me a piece of orange and gently ruffling my hair. It's not too late now. These words were heard by Alexander, who had come to visit me. His face dark and slightly. But he said nothing. During my hospital stay, I thought a lot. I felt regret and unwillingness because I had burned passionately for Alexander, like a moth to a flame, only to realize in the end that I was just a drop of mosquito blood in his eyes. So in this second chance at life, I want to shake off the ashes of my past life and let a rose unique to me bloom from the ruins. With this realization, I decided to say goodbye to Alexander completely. On the day of my discharge, Alexander cancelled all his work, drove to pick me up, and took me back to Xianxia, caring for me attentively the whole time. But I handed him a divorce agreement. Alexander, sign the papers. And let's part on good terms. Alexander was stunned for a moment. Instead of taking the agreement, he gently coaxed me as usual. Isabella, I really will send Cecilia away. She won't be a barrier between us. Can we have a good life together from now on? I didn't make a scene or sneer. I asked him calmly. You want to have a good life with me? Alexander nodded eagerly. But I don't want to be with you anymore. Isabella. Looking at this handsome face I had loved for 2 lifetimes, my eyes gradually turned red. Alexander. I used to feel very unwilling. Now I realize I wanted too much, marriage and love. Was Alexander at fault? Maybe. His fault was not loving me. Cecilia is a good girl and shouldn't follow you without a proper status. Our divorce is also a clean break. If you keep pestering, it will hurt all 3 of us. I handed him the pen, placed my hand on his face, and touched my forehead to his. Sign it. Set both of us free. Alexander should have felt relieved, but the pen in his hand felt impossibly heavy, and every stroke he wrote weighed on his chest, making it hard to breathe. He had never imagined divorcing Isabella. But the 2 names now written side by side no longer belonged to each other. When you have time, remember to move out of Xianxia. After saying this, Isabella opened a car door and got out, her back resolute and firm. Alexander sat in the car, squinting as he watched her get into Julian's car. At that moment, an indescribable restlessness welled up in him. Just like the day he returned from Berlin and went to Isabella's apartment, only to unexpectedly see Julie and dropping her off. The childhood friend with him said meaningfully, "You don't even like Isabella. Why not just live your own lives?" But Isabella was his wife. And they were still married. At the time, Alexander attributed this feeling to the possessiveness triggered by someone coveting his property. So he had someone use underhanded means to cancel the divorce application. That night, he easily entered Isabella's current apartment, knowing her password was still his birthday, just like that midsummer afternoon after their college entrance exams. When he knew this beloved red rose had secretly liked him. But Alexander didn't care. Isabella was too proud. Not his type. He preferred gentle girls like Cecilia from the south. So during the arranged marriage, he thought Isabella had long since moved on. In families like theirs, having one hopeless romantic like him was rare. How could there be a second? But he underestimated Isabella. In their 6 years of marriage, he saw through her love for him. Feeling guilty while trying to compensate her. He couldn't return her love. But he could give her benefits and the position of Mrs. Alexander. So when Cecilia, forced to be his mistress, cried and begged him to let her leave Beijing, he stayed silent. Alexander, you're married, why keep me in Beijing? Whether it's me or Isabella, don't we deserve complete love? Alexander lit a cigarette. Through the smoke, he saw Isabella's red eyes. You don't love me. And I don't love you. Isabella no longer loved him. He should have been glad. But why did his heart ache as if pricked by needles? The nicotine irritated his throat, making him cough violently. That day, after his friend left, he asked with a smile, Alexander, did you never like Isabella? In their youth, Isabella was bright and bold. Her childish face more beautiful than the Hong Kong stars in magazines. Their group of friends, after watching Xianxia dramas, privately called her Red Rose. She was the goddess of their youthful infatuation. But Alexander had never liked her, at least he thought so. When the cigarette burned to the end and scalded his finger, he finally dared to admit the truth. Had he liked Isabella? Of course. Who could not love a passionate, bold red rose? Alexander lay on the steering wheel, coughing unceasingly. Just then, his phone rang. It was the Leiden nanny from Fantasies International. Alexander, Cecilia is gone. As soon as Cecilia put down her luggage, she was escorted off the plane by a flight attendant to the airport VIP lounge. When she opened the door, she saw Alexander sitting on the sofa, looking travel-weary but still eyeing her with the condescension of a superior. Cecilia, haven't I been good to you? Are you so eager to leave me? Cecilia couldn't quite describe her feelings: frustration, relief, surprise, perhaps all mixed with an unmanageable complexity. She stood still, looking at him calmly. Do you mean the goodness of threatening my sister's life to make me your mistress? Or ignoring your mother, aborting our child? Alexander looked at her coldly. Saying nothing, Cecilia lowered her eyes. And silence filled the room. Finally, heading for celebrate, Alexander broke first. Stepping forward to hug her and coo gently. I'm already going through divorce proceedings with Isabella. Just give me more time. I will. You'll marry me. Right? Cecilia sneered and pushed him away. Alexander staggered, anger flickering in his eyes. Cecilia, must you pick now to act up? Cecilia's hands trembled as she gripped the handle of her suitcase. She was from an ordinary family who believed in fairness. But for a privileged young master like Alexander, fairness was never in his vocabulary. She could only gamble on their vague bond for her future. Cecilia smiled sarcastically. If I didn't do it now, I'm afraid I'd never get out of Fantasies International. Only then did Alexander really look at her. The Cecilia he remembered was submissive, like a quiet white rose. Even in their worst fights over the years, she had never spoken harshly to him. But now, she aimed all her thorns at him, as if determined to tear him apart. At 20, you said you'd marry me and asked me to wait. I believed you. At 25, you said the same and asked me to be your mistress for a few years. I believed you too. But Alexander, I'm 31 now. Do you think I'd still believe you? As Cecilia spoke of the past, tears poured down her face. I've spent 13 years of my life on you and lost a child because of you. Can't you let me go? Alexander instinctively reached to wipe her tears. This time, I promise I'll marry you. Just trust me one more time. Okay? Cecilia dodged his hand. Alexander, you should know that even if you divorce Isabella, Your mother will arrange other women for you, Miss Zhang. Miss Li, I'm a real person. Cecilia sobbed breathlessly. Let me go. Please. Alexander couldn't understand. He had tried to be a good husband and lover. So why did Isabella want to leave him? And why did Cecilia too? He hugged Cecilia tightly, repeating the excuses she had grown tired of over the years. Cecilia. I can marry you. I will marry you. Cecilia suddenly realized that the boy who had made her heart flutter at 18, beneath his polished facade, was rotting to the core. Fine, let out a low sigh. I believe you. Alexander's eyes lit up, only to hear Cecilia ask, You married me. But you still have Isabella in your heart. Do you want us to switch roles and repeat the same mistakes? Alexander froze, daring not to meet Cecilia's reddened eyes. Cecilia's heart sank to the bottom. Finally, having fulfilled my sigh, she mustered the courage to push Alexander away, severing herself completely from the past. Maybe you still have feelings for me, but there's another girl in your heart now. I won't be your mistress again. Nor will I play this three-person love game. So, Alexander, let's end it here. Cecilia gave Alexander a light hug, then left without looking back. Alexander immediately chased after her, but Cecilia walked swiftly. He could only watch her figure disappear into the crowded throng. In that moment, Alexander suddenly realized he might lose both Isabella and Cecilia. After being discharged from the hospital, Isabella's mother handed over work to her subordinates and took me back to the compound to recuperate. Coincidentally, Julian had just completed his transfer procedures, and the team granted him a long leave. So he stayed at my house every day. Aunt, who had cared for me since childhood, was shelling green beans and pointed at Julian with a smile. Brother Nyan doesn't go anywhere all day, just sticks by Miss Man at home. His eyes are glued to her. Julian squatted down to help Aunt shell beans, but his gaze remained fixed on me. What can I do? Our young miss still hasn't given me a proper title. Our eyes met, and the autumn afternoon sun poured through our silent exchange. In that instant, the world stilled, and I could hear the clear thump of my heartbeat. Vaguely, get out. I felt something sprouting from the barren soil of my heart. After dinner that day, Julian took me for a walk in the Hutong. We strolled from one end to the other, chatting about our youth and past memories, until we stopped under the plane tree from that summer afternoon. Julian shoved his hands into his pockets, his dark eyes fixed on me. Isabella, have you decided? I looked up, seeing my own reflection in his clear irises, and nodded gently. Decided. Julian, let's give this a try. I wasted a lifetime on Alexander. But it wasn't that my judgment was poor, just that I loved the wrong person. My love has always been sincere, burning brightly for whoever holds it. Alexander simply didn't deserve it. That night, Julian held me close, the veins in his forearms standing out as he buried his head beside my ear, whispering my name over and over. Isabella. Isabella. Dating Julian was effortless. Years of friendship had forged a tacit understanding, and in his life's code, I ranked only after the nation. In moments of deep affection, he vowed to me, Isabella, the nation gives me duty, but you are my eternal faith. I never doubted his sincerity. But I could no longer love someone as recklessly as I had at 18. For me now, career, dreams, and even mundane life all took precedence over love. After Springtide was greenlit, the lead actress hadn't been finalized, and I spent days communicating with directors and producers. One evening after overtime, Julian came to pick me up. Too exhausted, I asked him to take me back to the nearby Xianxia mansion. The car parked in the underground garage, and Julian carried me upstairs. Maybe it had been too long since we'd been alone, but as soon as we exited the elevator, he cupped my face and kissed me. I wrapped my arms around his neck, tilting my head to meet his kiss. Suddenly, the elevator doors opened not far away, and footsteps echoed in the quiet corridor. Alexander stepped out, his face dark as he watched us kiss. His gaze was too intense and direct. I looked up, meeting Alexander's gloomy and cold stare. He raised an eyebrow mockingly. Am I interrupting? After the divorce, Alexander had never moved out of Xianxia mansion. 7 days a week, on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. He visited the old apartment upstairs to reminisce about Cecilia. On Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, he stayed downstairs, hoping to catch a glimpse of Isabella. On Sundays, he tried to understand who truly occupied his heart. Before he could figure it out, news came that Isabella was dating Julian. When he heard this, a long-forgotten restlessness surged within him, followed by anger. In that moment, Alexander finally understood, the person in his heart now was Isabella. For Cecilia, it was more a youthful obsession, while Isabella was the long-awaited heartbeat of his adult years. So he wanted to win Isabella back, even if she was with Julian. Because Isabella had never loved him, not in their youth. And not now. But the reality was here. He watched them kiss. Isabella's eyes filled with nothing but Julian. Julian released me first, then pulled me into his arms, sneering at Alexander. Since you know you're interrupting, can you leave? Alexander? Alexander ignored him, his gaze fixed on me. Isabella, can we go inside and talk alone? Go ahead. I'll wait here. Julian released my hand, squeezing it gently for reassurance. I followed Alexander inside. The house was still decorated as before, filled with signs of life. An open diary lay on the coffee table. Alexander bent to pick it up and handed it to me. Recognize this? Of course I did. The diary was filled with my girlhood crush on Alexander and the pain of our marriage. I'd been too hasty when moving out and hadn't taken it with me. Who would have thought Alexander had found it? I took it and threw it straight into the trash. A flicker of coldness crossed Alexander's eyes, which I caught. We have no relationship left. If you have any dignity, move out of my home. Under the dim light, Alexander's face paled slowly. After a moment, he looked at me, his eyes swimming with overwhelming affection. Isabella, I was late to realize when I fell for you. Cecilia and I are impossible now. I don't ask you to forgive me immediately, just give me a chance to start over. Please. Speaking of Cecilia, I knew she'd signed with a Hong Kong agency and her sister's condition was improving. Indeed, after leaving Alexander, we'd both thrived. I didn't hide my mockery. Alexander, even if our marriage was for family interests, you should have treated me right once you married me. But you couldn't let go of Cecilia, keeping her on the side. Now you say you love me, not her? It's laughable. We were both blind to waste 6 years on someone as cowardly and heartless as you. Isabella. Alexander tried to speak, but I cut him off with a sneer. I never denied loving you once. But that's all it was. The moment I decided to divorce you, I let go completely. I, Isabella, come from a good family. Am beautiful. And capable. What makes you think I'd go back to you? I'll have the locks changed. You'd better move out tonight. Or don't blame me for sending you to jail, regardless of our family's history. I didn't pause. Alexander watched me walk to Julian, take his hand voluntarily, and look up at him with a bright smile. I'll have someone sell the house when I have time. No more staying here? It bothers me. Julian smiled, then glanced lightly at Alexander. Ray looked devoid of emotion, merely stating a fact. You, Alexander, are out of the game. As Isabella and Julian's figures disappeared down the corridor, Alexander violently tore off his glasses and smashed them on the floor. The lenses shattered into pieces. His forehead veins bulged, his jaw clenched. Never had Alexander wanted to reclaim Isabella more than in this moment, even by any means necessary. After much deliberation, the lead role in Spring Tide was finally awarded to Cecilia. When her manager brought her to sign the contract, they gossiped privately. I thought President Isabella might reject you. Unlikely, Cecilia replied with a shake of her head. Isabella and I had our conflicts. But she's not petty. Besides, everyone chases profit in this world. Isabella is a businesswoman, she won't make a losing deal. Cecilia was chosen as the lead for no other reason than her appearance, acting skills, and box office appeal, all of which outshone the other candidates. I wasn't the jealous type, but some people clearly were. At the Spring Tide opening banquet, one of the directors, seemingly drunk, joked about Cecilia and me. Cecilia really knows how to please. She served both President Alexander and his wife so well that Mrs. Alexander personally chose her as the lead. The table fell awkwardly silent. Even Cecilia, seasoned in the industry, struggled to maintain her trademark smile. My expression didn't change. But I mentally reviewed the director's entire resume. Several of his films had secured funding and censorship approval with Alexander's help. This stunt was clearly Alexander's doing. Intended to just then. The banquet door opened from outside. If director is drunk, he should go get some air, Alexander said with a gentle smile. Cecilia and I are innocent. So naturally my wife. Wait a moment. I interrupted his self-righteous display of loyalty. Alexander's lips tightened. Isabella, ignoring him. I picked up my wine glass and splashed its contents on the director. Anger flashed in the man's eyes. But I smiled defiantly. Do you dare get angry at me? How could I? The director forced a laugh. I set the glass down, shifting my gaze from the director to Alexander with a scoff. You dare not anger me because my status far surpasses yours. But Cecilia, being weaker, becomes a tool for you to curry favor with Alexander and flatter me. Trampled on at will. Caught in the lie. Alexander's face darkened. Isabella. You've gone too far. As if hearing a ridiculous joke. I laughed out loud. I merely stated the truth. How is that too far? After a moment's thought, I had my answer. Is it because I exposed your self-righteous deep love, and wasn't moved to submit? Is that why it's too far? Alexander remained silent. His gaze terrifyingly dark. I met his stare unflinching. Alexander. Before today, I only thought you cowardly. Now, I find you disgusting. A girl's youth and sincerity are not chips for your self-righteous affection. I slung my bag over my shoulder and stood, addressing the room. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll be leaving now. Also, cutting so my session. Alexander and I have parted ways. I no longer deserve the title Mrs. Alexander. Please call me President Isabella from now on. The banquet ended in disarray. Alexander chased after me and happened to see me throw myself into Julian's arms. He stood on the stairs, wearing a black trench coat that exuded an indescribable aura of solemnity and coldness. Footsteps sounded behind him. Alexander turned to see Cecilia approaching. About what happened at the dinner just now. His words were interrupted by Cecilia. Alexander. If you could see your own heart clearly and go after Isabella, I might think more highly of you. But you shouldn't have used our past to provoke her. This isn't just disrespectful to Isabella, it's a trampling of me. Alexander frowned. Cecilia. Cecilia knew Alexander too well. Beneath his mask of gentle chivalry, he was actually haughty and disdainful of others. Too tired to argue further, she left without looking back. Alexander stood rooted to the spot, overcome by a sudden sense of powerlessness. He and Isabella had separated because of Cecilia's presence. Was it wrong to distance himself from Cecilia now? Yet it seemed he had hurt both women. Unable to make sense of it, Alexander drove under the influence that night and caused a car accident. When news of Alexander's car accident reached me, I was planning a trip with Julian. In both my past life and since being reborn, I had always stayed in Beijing, never venturing far. Now that my career was thriving, I longed to explore the world. A week after the news broke, Alexander's mother came to my door in person. The first thing she said, with tears in her eyes, was a plea. Isabella, I'm begging you, will you go see Alexander? She told me the accident had been severe, and due to delayed medical treatment, he might spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. I looked at the woman before me. In my memory, this aunt had always been proud and noble. Even my family's status had only barely met her standards. But now, with red eyes and silver hair, she pleaded with me, all for a chance to let me see her wayward son. My heart softened, and I agreed. Pushing open the hospital room door, I found Alexander lying in bed, staring blankly at the Wanchun Pavilion at Jingshan Mountain outside the window. His eyes lit up when he saw me. Do you forgive me now that you've come to see me? I placed the fruit basket on the table and met his gaze directly. I'm here because your mother begged me. If it weren't for her, I'd never want to see you again for the rest of my life. There was another reason. After years of marriage, our family's interests were to intertwine to sever quickly. The light in Alexander's eyes faded inch by inch. After a long silence, he said hoarsely, "Isabella, I had a long dream where you didn't divorce me." "Really?" I said flatly. "In your dream? Did I die of a broken heart?" "Isabella." Alexander froze. Then his eyes slowly reddened, and he covered his face with both hands, his voice trembling with sobs. "I really did love you, Isabella. I wanted to make things right. It doesn't matter anymore. For the Isabella of my past life, Alexander's love had been the ultimate pursuit of her life. But for me now, it was irrelevant." I got up to leave and paused at the door without looking back. "Alexander, you're cowardly and greedy. You wanted the benefits my family brought, my love as your wife, and to keep Cecilia by your side for the nostalgia of first love. In the end, you deserve to lose both." I opened the door and saw Julian waiting in the corridor. "Let's never see each other again. If we can help it. Isabella." A heart-rending cry came from behind me. Alexander tried to chase after me but fell heavily to the floor, his legs in casts making it impossible to even crawl. I closed the door without a backward glance, leaving the past and Alexander behind it. Taking Julian's hand, I stepped into a new life that truly belonged to me. After that day, I stopped paying attention to Alexander and packed an RV with Julian for a road trip south. We visited many places, the Jiangdan region praised as paradise on earth, the lowest deserts echoing with camel bells, and the Potala Palace beneath endless snow-clad mountains. In the northwestern lands where Julian had transformed from a defiant youth into a responsible man, he stood against a backdrop of Gobi Dunes, a red national flag fluttering in the wind, and knelt on one knee at sunrise. "Isabella, will you give me the chance to marry you?" In our relationship, I had always been the one in control. Even a proud man like Julian was willing to bow before me, placing the reins of our love in my hands. I looked at the ring in his hand and nodded gently. The moment I agreed, Julian's hands trembled as he slipped the ring onto my finger. I hugged him with a laugh. "Are you really that nervous?" Like the time he rushed to the hospital without a second thought after we landed, forgetting it was our wedding anniversary. He held me tightly, his whole body shaking. I smiled and nuzzled his cheek. "I'm happy too. Because this healthy relationship has helped me rediscover myself." Julian had taught me that love didn't require humility and I could always be the one in charge. In that moment, I saw roses blooming on the barren land. Loving someone is like tending a garden. Julian was an excellent gardener. But he said, You, Isabella, have never been a rose that blooms or wilts for anyone. You've always bloomed for yourself." After our journey, I returned to Beijing to handle work, while Julian took charge of planning our wedding. The year we officially registered our marriage, the film Spring Tide was released. Cecilia won Best Actress at the Golden Shadow Film Festival, and I officially joined the core board of Long Tai Group through the film's success. In the same month, Alexander was expelled from the Alexander family's board of directors, and the family left Beijing shortly after. At the celebration banquet, Cecilia and I sat in the front row during the screening. She smiled and shared recent news. Alexander contacted me, saying after all these years, he still can't let go of me. "What did you say?" Cecilia's smile mirrored the vibrant expression of the film's lead actress on the screen. "I told him I don't like recycling garbage." She raised her glass to me. "Congratulations on your promotion, President Isabella. Congratulations on your award, Cecilia." I clinked my glass with hers. "We are who we are, roses that do not depend on others to survive. A flower blooms for no one but itself." The end.